Let us read, and let us dance. These two amusements will never do any harm to the world. Judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. It is forbidden to kill, therefore all murderers are punished unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets. Life is a shipwreck, but we must not forget to sing in the lifeboats. Those who can make you believe absurdities, can make you commit atrocities. The more I read, the more I acquire, the more certain I am that I know nothing. I have wanted to kill myself 100 times, but somehow I am still in love with life. This ridiculous weakness is perhaps one of our more stupid melancholy propensities, for is there anything more stupid than to be eager to go on carrying a burden which one would gladly throw away, to loathe one's very being and yet to hold it fast, to fondle the snake that devours us until it has eaten our hearts away? I have never made but one prayer to God, a very short one: O Lord, make my enemies ridiculous. And God granted it. Fools have a habit of believing that everything written by a famous author is admirable. For my part, one read only to please myself and like only what suits my taste. God is a comedian playing to an audience that is too afraid to laugh. Now, my good man, this is no time to be making enemies. Voltaire on his deathbed in response to a priest asking him that he renounce Satan. Despite the enormous quantity of books, how few people read. And if one reads profitably, one would realize how much stupid stuff the vulgar herd is content to swallow every day. It is dangerous to be right in matters on which the established authorities are wrong. Doubt is an uncomfortable condition, but certainty is a ridiculous one. Cherish those who seek the truth, but beware of those who find it. It is better to risk saving a guilty person than to condemn an innocent one. Think for yourself and let others enjoy the privilege of doing so too. Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. Every man is a creature of the age in which he lives, and few are able to raise themselves above the ideas of the time. Our wretched species is so made that those who walk on the well-trodden path always throw stones at those who are showing a new road. The human brain is a complex organ with the wonderful power of enabling man to find reasons for continuing to believe whatever it is that he wants to believe. Optimism, said Cacambo, what is that? Alas, replied Candide, it is the obstinacy of maintaining that everything is best when it is worst. Sensual pleasure passes and vanishes, but the friendship between us, the mutual confidence, the delight of the heart, the enchantment of the soul, these things do not perish and can never be destroyed. I should like to know which is worse, to be ravished 100 times by pirates, and have a buttock cut off, and run the gauntlet of the Bulgarians, and be flogged and hanged in an auto-da-fe, and be dissected, and have to row in a galley, in short, to undergo all the miseries we have each of us suffered, or simply to sit here and do nothing. Animals have these advantages over man: they never hear the clock strike, they die without any idea of death, they have no theologians to instruct them, their last moments are not disturbed by unwelcome and unpleasant ceremonies, their funerals cost them nothing, and no one starts lawsuits over their wills. Do you believe, said Candide, that men have always massacred each other as they do today, that they have always been liars, cheats, traitors, ingrates, brigands, idiots, thieves, scoundrels, gluttons, drunkards, misers, envious, ambitious, bloody-minded, calumniators, debauches, fanatics, hypocrites, and fools. "Do you believe," said Martin, "that hawks have always eaten pigeons when they have found them? It is an infantile superstition of the human spirit that virginity would be thought a virtue and not the barrier that separates ignorance from knowledge. Meditation is the dissolution of thoughts in eternal awareness or pure consciousness without objectification, knowing without thinking, merging finitude in infinity. What can you say to a man who tells you he prefers obeying God rather than men, and that as a result he's certain he'll go to heaven if he cuts your throat? Each player must accept the cards life deals him or her, but once they are in hand, he or she alone must decide how to play the cards in order to win the game. Life is thickly sown with thorns, and I know no other remedy than to pass quickly through them. The longer we dwell on our misfortunes, the greater is their power to harm us. But there must be some pleasure in condemning everything, in perceiving faults where others think they see beauties." "You mean there is pleasure in having no pleasure? And ask each passenger to tell his story, and if there is one of them all who has not cursed his existence many times, and said to himself over and over again that he was the most miserable of men, I give you permission to throw me headfirst into the sea. Answer me, you who believe that animals are only machines. Has nature arranged for this animal to have all the machinery of feelings only in order for it not to have any at all? All men are by nature free. You have therefore an undoubted liberty to depart whenever you please, but will have many and great difficulties to encounter in passing the frontiers." He wanted to know how they prayed to God in El Dorado. "We do not pray to him at all," said the reverend sage. "We have nothing to ask of him. He has given us all we want, and we give him thanks continually. One always begins with the simple, then comes the complex, and by superior enlightenment one often reverts in the end to the simple. Such is the course of human intelligence. It requires 20 years for a man to rise from the vegetable state in which he is within his mother's womb, and from the pure animal state which is the lot of his early childhood, to the state when the maturity of reason begins to appear. It has required 30 centuries to learn a little about his structure. It would need eternity to learn something about his soul. It takes an instant to kill him. What is tolerance? It is the consequence of humanity. We are all formed of frailty and error. Let us pardon reciprocally each other's folly. That is the first law of nature. Alas! I too have known love, that ruler of hearts, that soul of our soul. It's never brought me anything except one kiss and 20 kicks in the rump. How could such a beautiful cause produce such an abominable effect on you? Even in those cities which seem to enjoy the blessings of peace, and where the arts flourish, the inhabitants are devoured by envy, cares and anxieties, which are greater plagues than any experienced in a town when it is under siege. So it is the human condition that to wish for the greatness of one's fatherland is to wish evil to one's neighbors. The citizen of the universe would be the man who wishes his country never to be either greater or smaller, richer or poorer. I have been studying for 40 years, which is to say 40 wasted years. I teach others yet am ignorant of everything. This state of affairs fills my soul with so much humiliation and disgust that my life is intolerable. I was born in time, I live in time, and do not know what time is. I find myself at a point between two eternities, as our wise men say, yet I have no conception of eternity. I am composed of matter, I think, but have never been able to discover what produces thought. I do not know whether or not I think with my head the same way that I hold things with my hands. Not only is the origin of my thought unknown to me, but the origin of my movements is equally hidden. I do not know why I exist. Yet every day people ask me questions on all these issues. I must give answers, yet have nothing worth saying, so I talk a great deal, and am confused and ashamed of myself afterwards for having spoken. Just for the sake of amusement, ask each passenger to tell you his story, and if you find a single one who hasn't often cursed his life, who hasn't told himself he's the most miserable man in the world, you can throw me overboard head first. He was my equal in beauty, a paragon of grace and charm, sparkling with wit, and burning with love. I adored him to distraction, to the point of idolatry. I loved him as one can never love twice. We are intelligent beings. Intelligent beings cannot have been formed by a crude, blind, insensible being. There is certainly some difference between the ideas of Newton and the dung of a mule. Newton's intelligence, therefore, came from another intelligence. Our character is composed of our ideas and our feelings, and, since it has been proved that we give ourselves neither feelings nor ideas, our character does not depend on us. If it did depend on us, there is nobody who would not be perfect. If one does not reflect, one thinks oneself master of everything, but when one does reflect, one realizes that one is master of nothing. Originality is nothing but judicious imitation. The most original writers borrowed one from another. The instruction we find in books is like fire. We fetch it from our neighbors, kindle it at home, communicate it to others, and it becomes the property of all. If God did not exist, he would have to be invented. But all nature cries aloud that he does exist, that there is a supreme intelligence, an immense power, an admirable order, and everything teaches us our own dependence on it. What is tolerance? It is a necessary consequence of humanity. We are all fallible, let us then pardon each other's follies. This is the first principle of natural right. I have lived 80 years of life and know nothing for it, but to be resigned and tell myself that flies are born to be eaten by spiders and man to be devoured by sorrow.